Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today is episode number 35 of Weekday News Capsule with Sridhar Chityala. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram and good morning, sir.
Good
Looking
morning
forward
to you.
to
Good
today.
morning to you, sir. Thank you very much. And viewers, there's breaking news on the Jammu Kashmir National Highway. 4 terrorists belonging to Jaish-e-Mohammed have been killed in an encounter. A huge cache of arms and ammunition was also recovered. They were trying to disrupt the district council elections that was slated for November 28th in most of Jammu and Kashmir. For more on this, please go to pgurus.com. We have a very detailed story coming up on that one. And Sridhar ji, let's get back to our main programming, which is about the news of what is happening around the world. So let's start with the United States. Can you just give us a quick update on what is happening on the presidential election, sir?
Well, I think that the presidential election, the drama continues, and we had Michigan Wayne County folks initially towing the line after some reluctance with the two Democratic representatives on a 4-0 to certify the voting, and then they rescinded subsequently. So today it is a stalemate, and the reason that has been given is that they have been threatened, bulldozed in the Zoom session, and forced to be compliant, so which they are opposing. So we're back to a gridlock as far as the Wayne County is concerned. In a PA, Pennsylvania, there seems to be refiling Mr. Rudy Giuliani on three areas. One is around the non-presence of the Republican representatives, the cutoff deadline and the acceptance of some of the votes, plus of course the validation of the voter list. So it's back in the courts in terms of Pennsylvania. I think Wisconsin is very similar in terms of they're looking at the recount, and Nevada has even much bigger issue. It's also the news item, the news line that is making headlines is John Ossoff, who is the Democratic representative on the Senate side, seems to they have discovered or some transactions which is of substantive size for the videos or other things that was licensed to Al Jazeera television. Either not declared or not being made aware. So we have the potpourri of activities that is going on, and lots of speculation on social channels, lots of pundits. The story is very simple. Unless and until there is a certification which is done as a first phase by the state secretaries, then this process cannot kind of come to an end. The legal process will escalate to Supreme Court if the Republican Party doesn't find satisfaction. So there is a process underway. There is no certainty in terms of guarantee, in terms of who is declared the official winner. Right now, as we said yesterday, 290 to Biden and 232 to President Trump is the current standing, with the Georgia recount underway and the votes, the number of votes by which he's leading coming down. So this is the gist of it.
So the recount is almost finished in Georgia, sir?
It's expected to be finished by tomorrow. So I think that they say they are well on track to accomplish that goal.
Moving on to COVID and the incidence of COVID around the world, as we see, let's take a quick look at the numbers. Sridhar ji, what do you make of all the numbers that we are seeing now? US is number 1, India is number 2, Brazil is number 3, France is number 4, 5 is Russia, and so on. Now, there is an element of how much testing is also being done, isn't it? I mean, the numbers are going to reflect how much testing you do. If you don't test a considerable sample of your population, then the numbers will appear low, isn't it?
Well, I think there are two aspects to it. One is a response-based numbering. The second is testing-based numbering. I don't know whether any country in the world is in a position as yet to say, except Taiwan. Okay, Taiwan stands tall. They have passed pretty close to 200 days. That's almost 6 months without a single infection. So they are the kind of the highest benchmark, rapid testing, as you rightly said, but they attribute it to very rapid response mechanism to contain it, right? So suppose somebody detects, they kind of immediately rush to the spot and put the appropriate kind of measures. That's been the mechanism according to them. They have not declared fully, but they do have some of the seems to have world's best practices. Japan is a little bit rising, so they're panicking 400 cases. Now, coming back to your core question that you asked, it's impossible for any nation to kind of say, I have fully tested, so therefore my results stand. So now the mechanism that is being adopted is how many people are reporting and how many proactive tests that have been conducted, how many self-tests has been conducted, etc. So clearly, US seems to be a leader in the pack in terms of the number of tests conducted. Probably Europe, some of the smaller countries have done a better job, but mind you, they're smaller countries relative to the size of the United States. So US is the number one in the list, basically because it's an active mix, 330 million people. So, close to 12 million people, affected. But the story that is making rounds is not the story about what has been accomplished. What has been accomplished, which is very critical for people to know, is that it's not the 200 deaths, that 250,000 deaths, which kind of happened, we crossed yesterday. But it's also about, on a close to 12 million, I'm looking at the numbers, number of people who are recovered is 7.1 million. 7.1 million people have recovered, and the active cases is about 4.4 million people across the country, of which the most serious and critical is 22,000 people, in by way of numbers. So what is not being emphasized in the absence of cause and cure is the sad and tragic death of people. And many of the deaths could also be attributed to, pre-existing conditions like, respiratory disorders, diabetics, BP, etc. It's a very, very sad story. Personally, I've also lost some friends and relatives. So it is very sad. Some of them are relatively young, less than 65. Some of them in the 65, 75, and some of them in the 75 plus category. It is very tragic, but the situation that we are in today is that this discovered in February, we are in November, there was no cure possible. So it's all speculative, which is to say you can do this, you can do that, you could have done this, etc. So my response is, it's not merely the exhaustiveness of the testing, but that is a necessity. It is also about how much people are socially responsible in understanding the issue and dealing with the issue. And there are two schools of thought. You shut the whole place down, and the other is, you allow people to adapt and work. So United States is more and more going towards, I'll shut the country down. Whereas India, which is even more densely populated, 4 times more densely populated, in saying, I will be selective in shutting down pockets rather than shutting the country. And the numbers are fairly visible, which gives a lot of confidence that this is addressable issue. The conversion or the recovery rate in India is almost close to 98%. These numbers vary depending on which chart I'm looking at. Some people say it's 98, some people say it's 95, but it seems to be 98% based on all the evidence that one sees. India was 8.9 million cases, and of which total recovered is 8.3 million, and active is only 444,000, or 4 lakhs in Indian terms, of which less than 9,000 people seem to be serious. So there is a therapeutic and adaptive vaccine protocol that is being used in India. So this is a containable. Key message is, don't panic, this is containable, this is being addressed. In the meanwhile, we have, you saw that we discussed this yesterday, Pfizer and BioNTech launched their vaccine. They have a program to get it into the market in December. In India, they have said they have Covaxin, which they say 1 in 5 will be vaccinated by July 2021. Then we have AstraZeneca, which has announced yesterday or today. The news is making headlines, Eli Lilly. And then, of course, Moderna, where that was the one which triggered this 95% kind of success rate along various age groups, going from 18 to almost 85. So all this is a very, very reassuring aspect of that this is an addressable issue, though people keep on pointing out the number of deaths rather than number of people who have been helped to recover.
Thank you, sir. And let's take a look at the ongoing ASEAN meeting, ASEAN, and Xi Jinping addressed the meeting today, and then I guess President Trump is going to be addressing it very soon. Can you just cap what Xi said, sir, and is his statements in contrary to what he is actually being played out in the real world?
Yes, yesterday the session was inaugurated by the Malaysian Prime Minister, and some of the key people who spoke were Xi Jinping, Mr. Prayut Shah from Thailand, the Singapore Prime Minister. By the way, the Taiwanese health minister was also Chinese Taipei, as they call themselves, was at the meeting. Then there was Sheryl Sandberg was also at the meeting. What's the key headlines from Xi Jinping? Xi Jinping was given due importance because he's Asia. In his 20-minute speech, he said China is not decoupling. China will continue to open up the market. It is now believes in this whole concept of rotation, dual rotation approach, which is both looking at exports as well as domestic consumption. It has a 400 million population. It believes in open trade and multilateralism. It believes in a rules-based approach. It cannot shut itself, nor it can be subject itself to trade barriers and kind of tariffs. All kind of, high moral, ethical words. On one side, you have this happening, these statements from Xi Jinping. Also, he was saying, high-quality Belt and Road Initiative, which no country in the world is believing in because of the fundamental suspicion that exists on China's transparent kind of an approach. So while this goes on, you find that they are having some issues with Nepal and trying to influence the Prime Minister, Mr. Oli, including as small issue as, who should be measuring the Mount Everest and what should be given credit. They're interfering in almost many facets within, notwithstanding the border issues that they have dealing with India on the Himalayan side. But of course, nobody needs to, we have discussed it at length on the South China Sea issues that remains single biggest kind of threat to one of the big maritime waterways which controls trade.
Taking a look at Middle East, Israel seems to have conducted some airstrikes in Syria. What can you tell us about that, sir?
It's quite fascinating that it's obviously, if you recall, I think on Tuesday we said that a couple of terrorists, Al-Qaeda terrorists, were knocked out in Iran, in Tehran. Then soon after, we have now heard that they conducted airstrikes within Syria, which is controlled by the Iranian Quds forces. And they conducted airstrikes in 8 locations, including, depots and storage facilities and chemicals and all these kinds of locations. The details are sketchy, but 8 locations have been targeted. And last night, this morning, Trump announced further sanctions to Iran, which was completely supported by Joseph Lieberman, who tends to be more Democrat. He's retired, Democratic, the Connecticut senator, endorsing the policies of the Trump and stating that Iran is one of the single biggest threats in West Asia. And both our Middle Eastern allies or the West Asian allies and Israel would be very supportive of the actions being pursued, contrary to the prior Obama approach.
On the economy front, there is one country that seems to be nothing but a success story, Vietnam. It's been showing 2.6% growth in GDP in the last quarter. What is the secret of Vietnam's success, sir?
I think Vietnam's success is in a very kind of strategic location. Vietnam is also demonstrating that it has managed its contagion of COVID very well. It has laid its emphasis on SME, small, medium enterprises, notwithstanding it is coming out of a communist kind of a legal structure, it has demonstrated that it has reformed its laws and labor regulations, which is more business and investment friendly. So one of the strongest competitors in to India, for example, be it in the auto sector, be it in the mobile, be it in the textile, any of these sectors, when there is a flight of industry from China, the first port of call seems to be Vietnam. Taking cue of this, Indonesian Mr. Widodo, Indonesian Prime Minister, in the ASEAN conference indicated they are also going to change their labor laws, and SME is going to be one of the biggest focus. So to answer your question around the Vietnam, I said they have been nimble, investment friendly, work and business friendly, which has allowed the industries to move. And it's also in a strategic kind of a location. Vietnam is also one of the important partners of both India and Japan. Vietnam signed a deal with Japan, Marubeni, which is the Tokyo Gas and Light company, for harnessing the gas, natural gas, and powering rather than coal, shifting from coal. So all the things that you look at from an economic management point of view, Vietnam seems to be leveraging the advantage and its people with very pro-business, pro-market capabilities.
And one quick look at the market before we sign off today, sir. Yesterday was a down day. How is today looking?
Today as well, because of this COVID adversarial news, the markets are down. As I looked at it last, was down about 0.2%. But on the economic front, we are expected to report better unemployment numbers in about 30 minutes or so. I'm looking at the clock. In about 15 minutes, 8:30 when markets open, or close to markets opening, we are expecting even further reduction in unemployment numbers. What it would do when you shut down, we don't know. But at least right now, the numbers look good. As I look at the markets, again, yesterday was 1.2%. Today it's expected to be around where it'll go, we don't know. It is right now it is pointing to a 0.2%. There is also discussion, as I wrapped up before I came onto the show, that there's a discussion that may be started by Steve Mnuchin on the stimulus side, specifically around the pandemic and helping the small industries.
Thank you very much for that's all today. That's all we have for today. Thank you very much, Sridhar ji, and we'll be back as always tomorrow, same time, same locations. Namaskar. Thanks for joining, and please don't forget to subscribe. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar. Thank you.